Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I got a review for you today. We're going to be talking about DC Comics Danger Street, issue number 7. It is written by Tom King, art by Jorge Fornés, colors by Dave Stewart, letters by Clayton Cowles, and this dope creeper cover is done by Bill Sienkiewicz. I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of those names. Before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe on this guy's channel. It does help. All the likes, comments, the subscription, it's all free. It doesn't cost you anything. Hit the bell if you want to be notified when I do drop a video. It lets you in the know. Alright, so let's get into this Black Label comic. I was kind of pre-warned by my dude Ranger Sly, but it is kind of a filler issue, but it's still a great issue nonetheless. I do like that this chapter 7 is actually titled The Creeper. I was kind of satisfied picking up that cover. I do like when the cover is kind of tied to the story. But just like every other Danger Street, we start out with Dr. Fate, and he's basically telling the story. We have a lady cop, and we get some more, like, for me, we get a little more definition into who Lady Cop is, but just mainly with her name. And it's Chief Warren. If I find it, I'll give you her full name, but I think it's Lauren Warren. And for me, that was the first time. I mean, she's only been associated as Lady Cop, but she is in the GTO headquarters, and she's trying to talk to the Commodore. She is greeted by her most, like the book says, one of her most, like, deadliest bad guys, but it's basically the receptionist just stopping, halting her conquest, you know, and basically the Commodore's doing the whole executive thing, like, yeah, I'll be there in 1 second, and she's gonna be there for hours, kind of thing. We go over to a beach with one of the last remaining Green Team members, and he's just kind of living it up on the beach. He quickly realizes that the waiter who was waiting on him is not who he thought it was, and it was kind of a trap. So we got, you know, Manhunter after, you know, and he's trying to track down the last kid. Looks like he's finally going to kill him, and I think there's 2 left. I think there's this one and the Commodore that's left, but don't quote me. The book jumps over, and we get this kind of panel here where we get the Danger Street street sign, and Non-Fat and Crunch are basically graffitiing the sign. They're planning to do something else. It's not explained what they're doing, but it does spell out Anger Street after they cross out the D. But quickly they are caught by the cops, and Non-Fat and the boys are taken in to the precinct by another officer, of course. We got Lady Cop who is on the other side of town. She's still in the GTO headquarters waiting. At this point, it's been a couple hours already. And in walks Jack Ryder. Jack Ryder's kind of trying to figure out something that's going to happen on tonight's episode of his newscast or whatever, so he needs to talk to the Commodore. He quickly walks over to the receptionist. The receptionist kind of tells him the same thing. Says it's going to be a minute. This is where we get that name drop from, and it's it might be Lisa Warren, but it might be Liza, I don't know. But that's where we get her name drop. I'm pretty sure if you read her original story back in the 80s or whatever, you probably already know that. I don't. I'm not familiar with her. But basically, Jack Ryder and Lady Cop meet, and at the end of it, the only thing that comes out of it is basically Jack Ryder gives her a business card and is like, hey, if things don't go through with the Commodore, you know, give me a call, and, you know, we'll fix these kind of things up. There is some more conversation, of course. I'm speeding through this, but that's basically the gist of most of what happens. Besides Lady Cop just, you know, waiting there for nothing. We do jump back over to Apocalypse, and we got Darkseid and Highfather, and they're actually it's Darkseid and Mantis, and they're talking about keeping this fire going because recently we have this, you know, that's keeping the sky from falling. It's covering Atlas's place. And right now, Mantis is explaining that they're trying to keep the furnaces going, but they're kind of struggling to keep the fires going. And Darkseid kind of like, he's like, well, you know, since you spoke against me, and he's like, well, that's part of my plan, you know. He basically throws him in the fire, and he's like, well, let's see if a god will stoke the fire any better than the workers are doing, kind of thing. So he just grabs Mantis and throws him in. And the book does state that that it does, ignite the fires a little stronger for a little while, but this is only like a temporary solution kind of thing. They need Atlas to, keep the sky from falling. We got this conversation here with Lady Cop's lieutenant, who's covering in her tracks for, while she's gone, and he's booking in non-fat. There's a conversation, back and forth about he's being a little more rough than Lady Cop would be, and he actually gets the cop to say the term Lady Cop, which if you're reading this book, she doesn't like that when the kids call her that. But non-fat kind of like states that he was going to tell Lady Cop that he caught the cop calling her that, kind of thing. This whole situation is basically for non-fat to get where he wants to go. He gets locked into an adult cell instead of a regular kid cell or a regular holding cell where they would have kept him. But of course he's trying to get in here with Warlord, and sure enough he does get locked in there with Warlord, and we see that there's a breakout plan that's about to happen, that non-fat somehow is going to break out, Warlord and maybe the other kids and Starman. Basically we get this conversation right here, and it's after Jack Ryder comes out of the office, and it's basically that when he hands her that business card and tells her that that he'll help her out. We do get the scene over here, and it took me a second to figure out, but we get a bar scene, and it's Orion. That's the part that I was trying to figure out. I wasn't sure who this was because I'm used to seeing him in all his gear. But after his defeat, after the fight, trying to recover Atlas's body, he's kind of drinking it all away. He knows he failed. He can't go back to Darkseid and be like, "Hey, Dad, I failed," because Darkseid will just kill him, kind of thing. Basically, he's just drinking his sorrows away. We jump back over to the Green Team member being chased by the Manhunter, and eventually he makes it out to the middle of the ocean. He kind of turns around and he's like, "Well, what the hell am I doing? Am I going to swim all the way to Japan?" And he's like, "Manhunter, you actually got to do this. You're coming out here all just to kill a kid." And Manhunter's like, "Yes, I'm coming out here to kill a kid." And as soon as he does that, he's like, "Great, well, you're exactly where I want you." And sure enough, the Green Team springs some kind of trap, and I'll kind of get a little closer. It looks like some kind of, I don't know, like creatures from the Black Lagoon. They're nobody that I recognize. But anyways, we jump back over to Warlord and non-fat, and they're playing a card game, and there's basically Warlord's telling his side of the story to non-fat, and non-fat's basically like, he listens and he's like, "Okay, I get it, some of your story doesn't make sense. I kind of like Starman's version of the story a lot better, but I get where you're coming from," kind of thing. And that's where we get, and basically they end up going back to playing another game because they still have some time before, and they make it sound like it's going to be an explosion that happens that is going to be how they break out. We jump back over to Lady Cop and the receptionist. It's the end of the day. The building's closing. Lady Cop has been, stood around. They're messing with her, right? So basically, at this point, the receptionist is going to walk her out to the building because the whole building's locked up. Even after Lady Cop kind of explains that, hey, the next step is like a warrant. Our lawyers have already been in touch. I just need to talk to them about these murders, kind of thing. And it doesn't go that way. She gets walked out to the building. They get into a elevator before, and down the trip in the elevator is where we get some juicy context from the receptionist, and we basically find out the reason she's working for GTO, and it's because they have her son kidnapped. Every time she does something bad at work, she gets a piece of her son, kind of thing. If she leaves or quits, they will kill her son. So she just basically, doing what they tell her, kind of thing. At the very end, the very last page, we get a couple different panels like the previous issues. We get the Creeper getting a call from Lady Cop. We get to hear some of that conversation. It's basically them meeting up so they can figure some stuff out. We get Orion passed out drunk. We get some of Apocalypse workers trying to keep the fire going. We got whoever, and I'll kind of zoom in there, whoever that was that like grabbed Manhunter out of the water. We got him pulling, you know, Manhunter out, like, you know, he's basically passed out. We get Non-Fat and Warlord kind of becoming better friends in this weird situation, and then we got Starman up here, and it looks like he's above the police station kind of thing. But that's where this issue leaves off. There's no hint or nothing at the next issue. But we're getting closer to the end. It's supposed to be a 12-issue series. This was issue 7, so we're almost done. But that's my review. These are my thoughts. I loved it. Even though it was a filler issue, it was still great. The art's still phenomenal. It's still progressing the story, but right now I think we're getting to that point where everybody's joining sides and it's about to get to the end, you know, kind of battle thing. But let me know down below what you thought. Hopefully you enjoyed this issue. I don't know. But that's all I got for you guys. Alright.